Right. Okay, let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 7-minute Demand Gen ABM video series, pending a better name, of course. I'm here with Joe, who is totally capable of introducing himself in a second. But to give a short overview of the concept of this video series, Joe, in this case, will have 7 minutes to respond to 7 questions, all about demand generation or ABM. These questions have come from or have been adapted based on the data that we have collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through the experience and stated what their biggest struggles are with demand gen and account-based marketing at the moment. This is the first time we've done this, so we might get a lot wrong. And when I say we, I mean me. Might require a bit of editing afterwards, but we're going to give it a go. So yes, Joe, I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name's Joe. So I work in a strategy team and agency in London. Primarily work in B2B marketing, so do lots of stuff around kind of creative strategy, channel planning. Obviously, being B2B, a large part of the role is looking at ABM strategies for clients. Most B2B brands are doing it nowadays. It really kind of kicked off about 4 or so years ago, but most clients that we get now come to us and ask for ABM strategies. So it's a big kind of part of what I do. Looking forward to having a chat about it today with you, Sam.
Nice. Cheers, Joe. Got the big starting with the big dogs. I love that. Right. What I'm also going to do, caveat, is I'm going to set the timer on my phone. Between every question, there's going to be a coin flip. So I've got a digital coin up, like in a tab. So you might hear a ting. If it's heads, we're going to go left. If it's tails, we're going to go right. But yeah, each question, there'll be a minute to answer. So let me just flip this coin. Okay, so it's heads. The first question. It's like, who wants to be a millionaire? Okay, generic one. What is account-based marketing to you, Joe? What does it mean to you?
To me, I would say it's a bit of a marketing buzzword. We like to abbreviate a lot of stuff in the marketing world, which obviously usually makes it very hard to understand for people that sit outside the industry, but also for people that are in the industry as well. And I think something like ABM is a phrase that a lot of marketeers have kind of coined and cottoned onto in recent years without necessarily knowing exactly what it means. I think the reality of it is, and I kind of learned about this when I went to a ABM conference last year, is that it basically sits around the rule of 80-20. So if you look at your client portfolio, it's quite likely that 80% of your profits probably come from 20% of your customers or your leads or the type of leads that you go for. So it makes most sense to focus your efforts in that kind of 20% of your audience. So the reality of it is that it's kind of focusing your efforts in the most efficient and most personalized way possible for the clients that you're speaking to. And I've spoken to my boss about this before, and we kind of see it as almost like turning the funnel on its head a little bit. So ABM is a bit like kind of fishing for business with spears, as opposed to kind of the traditional funnel that most people associate marketing efforts with.
Fishing for business with spears. I absolutely love that. That's actually that's a nifty little expression there. I'm already seeing downsides to this video series, by the way, of I've got so many follow-on questions already, and I can see why this setup doesn't normally work, but we're going to persevere, right? So, okay, good. So far, so good. I'm going to flip the coin. We have landed on heads again. So second question is, this is a problem. So the problem is not enough interaction from users. So how would you fix that, Joe, I guess? So what's working well in the ABM world at the moment? I know it might vary, but open-ended question. I'll let you answer.
Mm-hmm. I'll probably give a little bit of an obvious answer, actually. But yeah, I think if you look at kind of any of the big reports out there about kind of B2B buying journeys and cycles at the moment, I think we're all more than aware that most kind of B2B audiences are conducting more and more independent research by themselves. And those purchase cycles are beginning to take kind of longer and longer. I think traditionally people kind of working in B2B and also ABM kind of approaches, they probably look to things like white papers and reports and things like that to kind of basically word vomit all the reasons for why people should be interested in their business, or contextualize it around a industry theme or topic that eventually positions their business as the savior to that kind of challenge that these people are facing. But I don't think it's enough to kind of service kind of white papers and reports for people just to read. People are inundated every day with all manner of kind of all-consuming information. They need things that are short, snappy, get their attention quickly. So that they're likely kind of seeing all sorts of different messages from competitors and stuff like that. And I just think that kind of long form approach isn't the best way to get engagement or interaction. When people are kind of going around looking for the information themselves, making their own ideas, making their own business cases, I think the best way to kind of push them along that funnel and kind of get a good ABM strategy in place is to give them interactive content. So things like ROI calculators at certain stages in the journey are really useful, because essentially it allows that audience to go and see the potential financial value that business can offer. And hopefully they'll have some context behind them already from different things they've read, to then be nudged down the funnel further that way. So I think, giving them the tools for them to go and make their own ideas themselves is the best way to do that.
Nice, and it's frictionless as well, isn't it? It's you're not asking them to get on a call or anything like that. Question 3 is, how do you personalize your campaigns? And if you can give examples of how it differs from tier to tier, that would be super. Yeah, it'd be great. Super.
Okay, right. So in terms of personalization, I think that it's really hard to be kind of truly personalized at the beginning of your campaign when you're looking to kind of target an audience. So I think this is quite often where a lot of businesses become stuck, because they think about kind of over personalization at the start, and that can be typically quite expensive or indeed ineffective, because the level of personalization that you can offer at the start of the journey is probably going to be things around kind of their name, their company, likely quite intrusive information that might actually put them off. So if you're detailing a lot of stuff about them when they've not engaged with you much, that might be an instant turn off for a person or a buyer that's going to be interested in your business. So for me, I think you kind of need to think beyond kind of a company name or information about their demographic and stuff like that. Is actually something that should be apparent as their progress through their journey develops. So, what content have they engaged with? What topics are they interested in? All stuff that we can kind of like learn about them from various tracking tools that are available at the moment. And I think with B2B, what you always have to think is that eventually that person's going to be handed over to someone to have a conversation with. So all of that insight that you gather across those different layers of the journey, ultimately we need to make sure that that's wrapped up and given to an account manager, so they have all the kind of information about what they've read. So I used to work on a fuels company that worked in the EV market, and we put a load of content out there about kind of onboarding onto the EV market, the difficulties and challenges around that, and depending on the various articles that people had read through the CRM journey that we put out there, we were able to kind of lead score and tee up the account management team to have conversations about specific topics, which I think is more valued as you come into the later end of the journey when you are kind of showing interest, because you want to speak about certain things. You don't want to feel like people know more about you than you told them. So I think that's the best way to kind of go about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, it can definitely come across quite creepy, and I'm probably guilty of doing some not horrendous things, but like just over personalizing in the beginning, and it's probably completely off-putting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me flip the coin again. See what we're doing. All right, heads. Nice. Problem following this round. Scaling. Right, the problem is just the word scale. How do you scale ABM? Joe, what's the trick? What's the answer?
I think when I think of scaling in ABM, I think of the challenges behind kind of getting organizational buy-in. So a lot of the time when we're working with different clients, it will be, a CMO that will come to us, or someone that's kind of like working in an isolated area of the business where they might have an understanding of what ABM is and the value of it, but they might be having very kind of challenging conversations internally to get other people to kind of work into that idea. So with anything where you're looking to try something new, I think the best thing to do in terms of scaling is to kind of start small, test and optimize your way up to something bigger. So I think, it all kind of like basically hinges on the way that you identify the accounts that you want to target from the offset. So you need to work really closely with departments like the sales team to identify where there's kind of like fertile opportunities with the current customer base, but probably selecting a few low risk accounts to test that methodology with first, and then work your way up to something bigger. And I think that's the best way that you're going to be able to kind of like grow ABM as an idea within your organization, by proving that worth initially from a smaller audience.
Yeah. All right, okay. Flip the coin. It was a good answer. Question 5. It's another problem. So the problem we got in was finding new and innovative ways to cut through the B2B noise while adhering to budget constraints. How are you approaching that one?
Okay, so in terms of kind of ways to cut through, I think it's always kind of going to be a challenge to kind of promote ABM within kind of smaller businesses. And I feel that if they want to do ABM properly, it's not necessarily going to be something that's truly cheap. There's a lot of businesses and SaaS companies and stuff out there that will offer various tech solutions to kind of help you cut through the noise and to provide different buyer journey experiences, different ways to personalize and segment the content that you put out there. But I think the best way to kind of cut through the noise ultimately is kind of like to take a bit of a step back from all that tech that exists out there, and ultimately kind of do your homework on your audience right from the off. So it's very easy to kind of get straight into the tech and say, right, oh, this is how we're going to go after certain people. But I think, you really need to kind of take this back to basic marketing principles. So what are the audience's motivations? Where do they hang out? Where do they consume content? Where do they go to ultimately inform decisions about what tech they buy or what services they buy? And this is all kind of the sorts of information that you can get from various profiling tools. I mean, at the agency I work with, we have the luxury of using a platform called the Global Web Index, or GWI, as some people know it. So through that tool, we're able to kind of see all those things around the different social channels people use, their attitudes towards different types of businesses or purchase behavior. You might not have those tools available as someone that's independent or working with a smaller budget, but there are kind of things out there that you can use that will help you profile your audience. I think that's a really important thing to do. I think it ultimately boils down to the idea of, there are many mediums to deliver your message, but it's all about making sure that it's the right message and it's resonating with the right audience. So that's what I'd say to that.
Right, let's go again. I've already flipped it. So it's gone to tails. So this is maybe a nice follow-on question anyway. How do you measure the success of your ABM campaigns? And for me, I guess is there anything beyond traditional metrics which get used or which you use?
So I think with most kind of measurement in ABM, as with many marketing campaigns that you get, it's really easy to kind of get wrapped up in those traditional metrics. So, people want to know, how many opens have I got, how many clicks have I got, what's the cost per conversion, like all that kind of stuff. And I think, given, one of the points that we made earlier around the fact that the B2B buyer journey is becoming longer and people are kind of going out, getting their own resources, making their own assumptions, business cases, I think there is definitely more of an onus to kind of think less about kind of those transactional metrics such as clicks and opens and cost per conversion, and more to kind of think about some kind of qualitative based insight where possible. So getting an understanding for what people actually think of the content that you're putting out there is also very useful. So I know, at a kind of basic level, that might be the fact that you've put a targeted social ad out there and you're looking to see kind of what comments people are actually writing on that ad, as opposed to how many people looked at it. That's something that might be quite interesting. So you could do some sentiment analysis around that sort of thing. Additionally, there are kind of various tools out there that you can use as well around kind of content performance. So looking at kind of getting live feedback on some of the things that you're putting out there as well is quite useful. So there's various plugins I think that are available for that. I think kind of understanding the what and the why behind what you're putting out there is probably more important than just seeing if someone's clicked on it or indeed kind of opened it.
How do you research your ICP? Be a better question maybe.
Okay. I think with this question, so it really kind of depends on how large the audience is that you're kind of like looking at. So obviously with ABM, we know that there's either kind of like one-to-one kind of conversations or one-to-many, with the level of kind of personalization behind how you want to speak to them varying depending on how specific we need to be. I've worked on deal-based marketing activities as well, where we're actually trying to inform a tender process. And in the case of kind of researching, things about our ICP in a DBM context, we might kind of be doing interviews or speaking to certain stakeholders to get insights about the types of audience that we need to influence, which is quite a rich kind of source of information. However, if we're kind of like expanding that out to look at potentially larger audiences, then we may also kind of deploy within the agency that I work in tactics around kind of social listening to see exactly what type of discussion is happening around the different kind of client industries or products offerings that they're currently putting out there. So what are people saying about them online, basically? Where are there potential points of kind of influence that we can work on? So I think, it very much depends on if it's a larger or smaller audience. But yeah, there's lots of tools out there, and I think also kind of going back to that conversation around profiling as well, I think that's a really important thing that you can do using those platforms like GWI.
Awesome. Nice. Well, look, we've made it. Congratulations. Thanks so much for doing that. There we go. It's like Buzz the Music Quiz. I don't know if you ever played that when you were younger, but yeah, it's got some fancy soundboard here. Right. One last question, and then I'll flip a coin. Is there anyone that comes to mind or who you think would like to join me and do this interview next? If I sort out the teething issues, of course.
So I went to this conference, and like there's someone that I think would probably be quite good for this.
Were they speaking there?
Yeah. Let me see. I'm not going to be able to find it.
It's nice to have. It's all right. It's nice to have stretch goals.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually quite like to get one of my old kind of colleagues to kind of do this as well. I think he'd be quite good to have on there, but I don't know if that's too specific.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, man. The last thing, Joe, is I flipped the coin, and do you want to find out what you've won?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go on.
So you've won. So I'm going to send you a bag of space goods. Have you ever had space goods before?
No. What's a space good?
Space goods is a type of like coffee. It's like a coffee alternative, but it's absolutely amazing.